Welcome grade 8 to a video going over the answers to exercise 7.1. If you haven't tried it yet, try it on your own first. If you are stuck though, feel free to take a look at this as I'll step through each of the questions in this exercise and how to solve that question. So for these questions, you are given certain transverse lines. Those are lines that cross two other lines. And in this case, we're dealing a lot with parallel lines and using information from that to figure out missing angles. So for 1a, we're given the value of 50 degrees here, and we're asked to figure out A. And because these are opposite angles to each other, exactly opposite to one another, we know that they have to be the same. Opposite angles like that are the same. So in that case, A is 50 degrees. If this is 50, this is also 50. Here, angle D. So here we get to some interesting things here. Whenever we get to a pattern here where we have two parallel lines and we have a line that crosses it, I kind of like to think of it as like a bit of a Z pattern. So if you draw a little bit of a Z pattern, okay, the interior parts of the Z are the same. So we don't know this, we don't know this, but we can figure this one out, which will help us know what D is. So here we have 120 degrees, but this is a straight line, which means from here to here has to equal 180 degrees. Right now we have 120 already, so we have to figure out what's missing. So 180 minus the 120 would give us 60 degrees left over here. And if this is 60, then this is also 60, which also would mean this is 120, but we're not figuring that out. So D in this case equals 60 degrees here because it's the complement to the 120. Here, we have a similar sort of situation, right? So if I know this value, then this value here, where this crosses, although this line doesn't extend, we can think of it like it extends, is going to be the same as the value here. So this is also going to be 113 degrees. This is a straight line, which means that from here to here has to be 180 degrees. I have 113 already. All I need to do is subtract the 2 to figure out what's left for this angle. So 180 degrees minus 113 degrees for this particular question is going to give us a final value of 67 degrees. So G equals 67 degrees here. Let's move on to D. In question D, we have a little bit more complex. If you remember our Z pattern, right? If we go here, our interior angles are the same, so 110, which means that this is also going to be 110 degrees. Like I've been saying before, from here to here is a straight line, so 180 degrees. Now I have three angles in this time around. I have 110 and 24 and K. I have to figure out what K is. So 110 plus 24 is 134. I just need whatever's left from the 180. So I do 180 minus 134, and that would give me 46 degrees left for angle K. So 46 degrees plus 24 plus 110 would give me the full 180. Here, I'm asked to solve for n in this particular question. Again, although this doesn't continue, remember these are parallel lines, so we can continue them as much as we want, and we can actually create a bit of our Z pattern here. So if we have a Z pattern here, and this is 67 degrees, the other interior part of our Z pattern is also going to be 67 degrees. And this makes up 180. Again, just like the previous question, I have three angles, 67, 38 degrees, and n, whatever n ends up being. So I add these two together, 67 and 38, and I get 105 degrees. I just need to figure out what's left for n to be of the entire 180, because remember, going all the way across is always going to be 180 degrees. So I need to figure out what's left, and that's going to be n equals 75 degrees. 180 minus 105 is 75. Next question, we have F here, and we're asked to solve for R. Now this one gets a little bit trickier here. Again, I can extend this way and this way. They're parallel lines, even though it's not written that way. And I can, again, create a bit of a Z pattern here, which means that I know that if this is 47, then this is also going to be 47 degrees. But this R is a little bit trickier here. Now there's two ways I could solve this. I could make a different Z pattern here. Or I could use my properties of a triangle. So if I did this different Z pattern here, 1, 2, 3, that means that this angle is the same as this angle, which just means that this plus this plus this equals 180. I don't know what that this is. Or I could say all the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So 62 plus 47 is going to be 109 degrees. What's left in order to get us to the 180? That's either to finish the triangle or to finish this part here to complement the other two angles. And that's going to be 71 degrees. So R equals 71 degrees, the missing amount of that triangle value. Next, when we get to question 2, we get a little bit more complex, but we still use the exact same principles as we've been using so far. So for number 2, we see that we have two sets of parallel lines, one here and here, and the other one here and here, which basically means that, that wherever these cross, they're going to be the same. So this angle and this angle are going to be equal to each other. They basically represent the exact same angle here. This line hitting this line hitting this line. This will also be 75 degrees. There's an imaginary 75 degrees over here, but X in this case is 75 degrees as we cross that point. Here, we're solving for X here. We have a similar sort of situation here. In that this would be 64, this would be 64 degrees, this would be 64 degrees, this would be 64 degrees. Now, all I have left is to solve for the rest. Sorry, this would be 64, this would be 64 degrees, this underside would be 64 degrees, and this would be 64. X would just be the complement of the line here. 64 plus something gets me this straight line here, that 180 degrees. And so I just take 180, subtract the 64, and I'm able to figure out that my X value of this angle here, to make that 180 degrees going across, would be 116 degrees. In this question here, we have parallel lines coming here, parallel lines coming here. So basically what that means is that this angle, which we need to figure out, is going to be the same as these two angles here. They're going to be equal to one another because these are parallel. And so 68 plus 35, that gives us that entire angle here, which is going to be 103 degrees. When we do that at the top, we get the same thing, and we figure out that our X value there is going to be 103 degrees, which is just the combination of those two angles put together. 2D gets a lot more complex. We have quite an interesting set of lines here. This is parallel, this is parallel, this is parallel, this is parallel, and this is parallel. So we have 3 parallel lines going horizontally, and we have 2 parallel lines kind of going vertically a little bit too. If this is 113, this is 113, this is 113, and as well as this is 113. There's an imaginary one here, which means that this X value inside has to be whatever is remaining to go across this line from the 113 to over to here to make a total of 180. So 180 degrees minus the 113 degrees is going to give us our X value, our missing value from these sets of parallel lines, which is going to be 67 degrees. So hopefully that helps step you through some of these questions when it comes to parallel lines. It's really about identifying and figuring out what matches, and to be able to piece together the puzzles to say, okay, if I know this angle and this angle is the same as this, as the same as this, and as the same as this, then that can help me solve for whatever is missing. We also use a lot of extra information about completing or complementary angles in order to complete the 180 degrees in solving these questions. Hopefully that helps as you step through this particular exercise.